Welcome, everyone, to the Winning Together podcast. This is Shay, the seaworthy Aslet, and across from me, I've got Jared, the Aloha Casey. Hey, Jared, how are you today?
Mahalo.
Mahalo. And mahalo for listening. We're so grateful that you're taking some time out of your life to invest in learning and growing and being and doing rockstar recovery with us. Because that's what we do.
You know the funny thing with the Aloha, my entire childhood growing up, because my parents and siblings grew up in Hawaii. I mean, every time we would go to church and my dad was speaking, he'd always be, Aloha! And he's like, no, you guys all have to say it back. And everyone just thought we were so weird. And then I went to visit family in Hawaii, and that's how they do church there. Everyone starts with a big aloha, and everyone alohas right back. So,
where I grew up, there's a lot of Polynesians. And so I, of course, knew I was supposed to have been born on an island. I don't know why I was born on the mainland. And I was Polynesian, of course. And I would pull that stuff. And I didn't even live in Hawaii.
I totally see you as a Polynesian.
I know, right? So the spirit of aloha is really about being in integrity with who you are and where you're at, and being a good steward, like a great steward for what you've been entrusted with. And today we want to open up and dive into the coconut of integrity and drink the milk and get the nutrients of what makes an integrous life so valuable and worth the suffering and the sacrifice and the effort and the time it takes to learn to be a person with integrity.
Love it.
Yeah. So, Jared, first of all, where we want to go, everyone, with you today is at the end, we want you to see value in integrity. And we also want you to see, especially those of you listening, think oh, I got this thing. I'm honest. We hope you see some areas where you can improve, boost, or become more impeccable with your word and who you are. So you are deriving the force of nature that comes in your life when you are who you say you are what you do, and you are the way that you said you were going to do it, period. And the benefit in anyone who is low in vitamin self-confidence, this message, this day is this podcast is for you, period.
I think of my little kids right now. I've got a little 7-year-old that every time he tells a story, if you don't give him the response he wants, it gets a lot bigger. And it grows. You don't need to elaborate upon, you don't need to get, just this morning, brother was picking on me, Dad, and he always wears my clothes. And then he kicked me in the balls a bunch of times. I'm like, really? Because I was standing right next to you. I don't remember that part.
And then you ask him to kindly tell the whole story. Well, actually, I was spraying with a squirt gun and kicking him in the bum. So
yeah, without fail. There's this big fish version that's always a little bit too much.
What's fun about that too, if when you have when you and your life come from a place of love and authenticity and courage, you can call somebody out like that, and it doesn't create this barrier. You can say, okay, now I feel like you're just making that up, that last part, or the embellishment gets past this kind of, it becomes laughable almost as an adult or a peer. You're like, okay, if you're able okay, I feel like you're making that last part up, and if you're coming from a place of love, they'll usually oh yeah, actually yeah, I was kind of all right. Let's have a little laugh. Let's talk about it. Yeah,
I actually remember a very distinct moment of that when I was 10, 12 years old. I had a friend that was really smart and really good at everything, and when I was around him, I just felt a little dumb, or I felt a little less than, and I would bring my stories up. I would try to match him or one-up him. I became a little bit of a one-upper, and we were pretty good friends. And I oddly remember him saying, "Hey, Jared, you don't have to make things better than they are. I'm cool with you just as you are." And I was like, okay. And I actually kind of took that internally, and I started feeling a little bit dumb for trying to level up, trying to be a one-upper, and I started practicing not doing that. And I started catching myself more and more as I got older. And it became more of a healthy pattern for me. And had he not done that, I don't know where I'd be now, but I was just grateful that he was willing to, at that age, be mature enough to share that with me.
Boom. I'm so glad you brought that up, because as you're talking, I can see and feel the Shaydog of 12, 13, 14, 15, and I didn't understand why I didn't belong in lots of ways, right? And no, I wasn't Polynesian, so I, like that one I kind of like accepted that I wasn't Polynesian. I was the white, I was the Palangi with all the polys. But in other areas, I didn't understand it and get it. And in what I understand now, and hopefully those of you that wonder why you haven't belonged or don't feel you belong, it's because you are not being true to you. And some part of you knew like, oh, I want to like fake this because then it'll be, and it's not. And you felt you're actually less desirable as a friend or as a person. And the more you try and belong by lying, fibbing, stealing, cheating, impressing, bravado, the less you are true to you and the less valuable you become to friendships and relationships and, or any kind of like arrangement.
Yeah, the less authentic your relationships are, the less connected you are, the less genuine you can have really anything. Mm-hmm. And that translates into adulthood, it translates into other areas of our life, it translates into the way we handle our business, at work, at home, with our friends and family. So if our objective is to have more genuine, authentic relationships, which I think is a healthy objective for all of us, integrity and honesty have to be at the core, and we have to be willing to peel back some of those layers of the onion that we maybe haven't even noticed since we were 10, 12 years old, or when we were 6 or 7. Like if my son keeps that pattern going, what would that look like? How big is that onion going to be? And then are we willing to really look at it and say, yeah, I can do something different, and I can be humble enough to let other people help me understand where I'm not being full of integrity or living with honesty.
The fruit of choosing to do this work is aliveness and connection with you, yourself, your purpose, your world, and seeing how you can like thrive and be of real serious value to the people around you. That's the fruit of all this work.
The 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. He says, tell the truth always, or at least don't lie. Like just these simple principles that get muddied down or they get mixed up with society's diluted. It's working on letting go of those pieces that don't work anymore. And I think you brought this term up, what's working, what's not working. Do you want to explore that a little bit?
So I'll go there with you. The big breakthrough I have had in integrity that's made the world of difference is when somebody helped me see integrity as not a moral, like you're good or you're bad, or some, you're looking at your standard of philosophy or theology or life, standards, and instead of looking at it as like I'm keeping score, I'm doing like 10 out of 10 things all the time, because then you get overwhelmed and you just quit. And somebody proposed like integrity, look at it as like structural integrity, that when a building is built, the elements of it have to be integrous, meaning they work, they do their function, their job, and then the building is sound and the foundation holds. Or like a bike wheel, like if your spokes don't have integrity, they don't hold on to the pressure, they don't can't carry their part of the load, your bike wheel will not turn. And they said, so the way you know if you're in integrity or not is your life working in that area? In the relationship with your spouse, is it working? No, you're out of integrity. And it's like, oh, so it totally helped me own it, first of all. It also made it like I didn't have to like have this thing, like this list I'm always checking off, that it was impossible to be that all the time in all areas anyway. And then I could say, oh, my life is not working. Oh, then what do I need to, like, how can I be more integrity? How can I be more impeccable with my word, more trusting? Can I do what I say I'm going to do when I'm going to say I'm going to do it? How can I own it more like quickly, and all those things? That was a huge breakthrough for me.
That's such a big breakthrough and a great way to look at it, peeling back those layers of shame or blame even. I just think like even maybe you're working on your bicycle wheel, but taking that in and taking it inside, what can I do for mine? A lot of us say, well, why is my wife's bicycle wheel not straight?
Totally.
Or why is her structure bent and broken? And we start to justify, well, I won't do it until they do it. Mm-hmm. Or it's okay that I act like a dirtbag over here because they are always
of this
doing
time.
This.
Mm-hmm.
And then that translates from relationships to the workplace, Do we steal time from our boss because our boss doesn't work as hard as we think they should? Do we find reasons to take from our friends because they don't show up for us? Or not pay people back because, they kind of owe us for something? So justification language becomes so powerful, and just about anybody can justify away anything if you really sit in it long enough and not live within your integrity.
One of my gifts is to forgive, and where like my family history includes a lot of alcoholism, and so I slide right into that codependent like way of being, of like forgiving, and it's always my fault, and the other people, like it's something I'm doing, it's whatever. And when I ask myself, am I working? Is my life working? It allows me to use my gift of forgiveness without being dumped on. So I think there's either the justification, because you're like, it's not landing on me, and then I forgive, and so you try and like pile it all on you. So the more I can say, like, am I doing my part, all of it, like as best as I can? Am I impeccable? And that's the other standard that this helped me like get to, is I felt impeccable was like, okay, that's some dude who wrote a book somewhere is impeccable, but I am like not there and not even getting close with all the years I'm putting together on this life. And that sucked. That feeling sucked. That I'm working so hard and want it so bad that I'm not even close to where it's supposed to be. So if the standard is impeccable, if the axiom is how you do anything is how you do everything, I felt now I could actually live into those like standard, like that, those ways of being, because my life was working, and I could more readily forgive somebody without putting stuff on me, and like the justification machine, and help somebody else like, oh, you're justifying that. Hey, let's just make this work. Like, what works for you? And a lot of that was the genesis of winning together. Like, okay, you're not winning, I'm not winning. Like, let's make it work for both of us.
And I think you can look at that as baby steps. Like, you start in a direction of, I'm going to practice this. And the end goal might be being impeccable with your word. But some of the base steps there are, look at the 12 rules for life. Well, at least don't lie. So start there. Like, stop lying, stop fibbing, stop elaborating on your greatness, or whatever that looks like. And as you're doing that, you're going to start catching yourself in what's working and what's not working. I have a little story that I would like to share about me. A few years back, I was doing my practice and getting my degree, and I took a job at this internship. And my supervisor, what I thought was giving me a fair deal, kept saying things and doing another. And then I had a mistake happen where I was able to take advantage of him. And at first I was like, but he said this, he's done this. He said this, he's done this. It's fine. And I justified it away, and I let it slide. Lo and behold, several months pass, and that mistake came to the top, and he saw it, and he started calling me out. And he called me out, and, you lied, you took from me, this, that, and the other. And my initial reaction was, well, you lied, you took from me, the things you said didn't work. You never kept your end of the deal. But by that point, it was like a pillow with feathers, and it was busted open, and my integrity was all those feathers flying through the air in the wind, and everything he said was hurting my integrity. It was hurting how I viewed myself, what I deemed as honest. And at that point, I was like, you know what? It was never worth it. I should have had clear communication. When I felt cheated in the first place, I should have gone straight to him and said, I feel cheated. I don't feel like this is fair. And this isn't working for me. Instead, I didn't. And I carried that shame and like that justification. And then when I got caught, I felt sick. I felt like stupid and dumb. Like, why did I wait so long to find a workable solution for that?
So tell me a little about, what were the skills you were lacking to do that better at that time? So clearly you're a good person, and you want to be a good person. And in that moment, you're being given the opportunity to be tested, like to develop that part, right? And as you floundered in that moment, like, so what are some of the skills that you needed at that time to actually be in integrity? Because I think a lot of people listening, they want to, but they don't know what they're lacking to become that person in that moment.
I think at that time in my life, I felt, first of all, I was really broke. I'd just done a lot of school, had a lot of bills. So I felt desperation. So I was like the Aladdin.
Other people depending on you, family, that kind of stuff, responsibilities.
You know, you start thinking like, well, I got to feed my family. How am I going to fill my tank full of gas? So if that,
Oh, no, you sing the song. Let's hear it. Aladdin.
got to eat to live, got to still eat.
Yeah. Right?
Right. That's about as much as I know. But that's kind of where my baseline was. As I was at this point of desperation, and I was low on, let's just say, faith that money was coming, things were going to change in a good way, and I was a little over trusting. I mean, I was trusting these people around me on their word, and then my word faltered when their word didn't go through. So the skill I think I was lacking most was faith in something greater than myself. It would work out even if there was a stack of consequences, even if the bill collectors came, even if I didn't have gas in my tank, it would work out. So I was lacking that faith piece, and I was overcompensating with justification. So I had to learn that my integrity is never compromised by money. Ethics always come first. My ethical integrity is I do what I say what I do. So just building upon that was the baseline for opening my skill set up. And fast forward a couple years, I was in a position of the same supervisor was at a conference that I was at, and I was one of the directors of the conference handing out whether or not people attended. Mm-hmm. And if they attended the full time, they got full credit. Mm-hmm. And you have to get so much what they call CEUs.
Yeah, continuing education credit.
Yeah, to keep your license. Well, I observed him and a couple others from the company duck out for more than half of the seminar and then sneak back in at the end to get their CEUs. So then they came to get them signed from me. I was like,
What did you do?
I signed their CEUs because it was their integrity, not mine. And I said, is this correct? Is this correct? Yes. Okay. Well, let me sign that for you. So I signed it for them because that was their integrity. It was all based on your word. Did you show up or did you not show up? But it was kind of a weird irony twist for me to see it come full circle.
How you do anything is how you do everything. And what's interesting about that is those are probably the people who, if somebody's kicked out on group, they would rail them. But here they are doing that. And more importantly, I think the treasure that you're able to put like up in your life is like, okay, I'm not that guy anymore who tries to weasel around and like even like I don't even know that it even occurs to you to act out of integrity. I mean, more and more. It will always be a test for any of us as long as we're alive, clearly. But to be so sad. And the other thing that's really emerging from your discussion and what you're pointing out is if you want an abundant life, you have to live from integrity. If you're feeling like you're not making enough money, not having rich enough relationships, not connected enough, if you want more, be more in integrity. That is the more that you're looking for, because then the abundant, like you become this gravity of attraction of more, because life can trust you. It can say, oh, if I give this treasure, if I give these resources, this person will do well with them.
Well, and if you don't live that way, you get stuck and you regress. Like that fast forward those few years, I'd eaten a lot of crow and I'd felt sick about my mistakes and I'd worked on them and I'm still working on them today. But in that moment, I felt comfortable in my own skin. And for whatever reason, in the conference, they had us sitting right next to each other. There's like 300 people there and we're right next to each other. And they didn't, to me, they were still
uncomfortable, or could have been.
It felt real uncomfortable, but they were still where they were. They were still in that space of acting out of integrity. And I had moved beyond that and I was comfortable and I could clearly tell they were not. So I was just grateful that I had done the work to work into something better.
That's another huge, if you want to not be so influenced by other people, you be in integrity, because in that moment, you at some point said, I'm a kind person, I am accepting, and I am somebody who moves forward in life. And to sit there next to them and allow yourself to not make a thing, bother them, sure. But for you to be centered, not distracted, and like anybody who has bosses at work or, they don't want to come home and see their loved ones because, I don't know, there's just this thing there. The more integrity you decide and choose to be, other people's actions really have less and less sway over how you decide to show up for your day. Because you decide how you're going to do that, and that's really all that matters. I show up this way. I'm kind. I'm on time. I give my gifts and talents. I'm positive. I bring the joy, whatever it is.
Yeah, and talk about letting go of some of the anxiety we feel, some of the stress we feel. Like you talk about abundance, just sometimes reducing some of that tension and that pressure we hold by what we're worrying about other people's feelings or thoughts of us. Living this way does that. I mean, just that alone is worth the price of admission.
Totally. Excellent point. I've found that, so with my kids, we make a distinction between lying and fibbing. And when they're fibbing, we want them to understand that you're telling something that's not true, or you're adding or embellishing or whatever, but your intent isn't to hurt. You just try to get out of something, or you don't want to like have a consequence or do more chores or whatever it is, right? And as adults, I've noticed there's a lot of fibbing that creeps in, and then we allow and make it okay. You're not intending to hurt somebody, and so that makes it somehow okay. But if you can start like, where am I fibbing, or where am I actually lying, and what spaces? Is it just at work? Like, are you really good with your religious or your church affiliations or your neighborhood obligations, or are you really good at work, but then you withhold who you are from your spouse? That's not integrity. Like withholding who you are from people around you, not an integrity. Sorry. Yep. Big deal. Hard. Yep. That's when people often decide to cheat on their partners, is when they don't feel they can be all of themselves. So the more you practice being at one with yourself and say like, my life's not working. I want to show up as me, like all over. And if I don't want to, then what do I need to go to work on in that area to become that person that like I'm happy and proud to be.
Yeah, just going in that same vein, when people justify, all right, I've got secrets that if I say these secrets, I'm going to get in trouble, or my life's going to get a little less comfortable, and then they leak into the marriage or the partnership, those secrets get deeper and darker. Jamie Lee Curtis, 1980s, 1990s, I mean, True Lies, incredible. Kind of helped me become a man just watching her in that show.
She's a rock star actress.
She's a rock star. Mm-hmm. She shares her story of addiction, and her biggest way out was understanding that she was only as sick as her secrets. So she started shelling off all of her secrets and be like, you know what? I'm not going to live that way. I'm not going to live with secrets anymore. I'm going to be an open book and live with integrity. She broke free. She got out of that pattern. She made a real life for herself, aside from all the drama that was going around her.
So you want to be well. How do you work through the secret part? And because you can't just then, it's not also unhealthy to just go dump on somebody like, oh, here's my secrets.
Right.
How do you make your life workable in that area? If you are keeping secrets, or it's something you need to do, what's some steps somebody can start taking?
So if you follow, let's just say the 12-step way, they'll say make amends, and unless those amends do literal harm to someone, or practicing the small integrities and growing into them, but being willing to go there with people and with yourself. Some people start with a letter. They'll write what they call an impact letter. Your addiction has done this to me, and my addiction has done this to you. And it's just putting that out there. Here's some of the things I did. I took, I stole, I was dishonest. Putting them out there. One of the parts of that is there isn't necessarily an apology with it. It's just, let's just put it out there.
An acknowledgement.
Acknowledge it. Let's put it out there in the universe. Let other people have an opportunity to feel what they're going to feel. And just creating space there is a great place to start. And then being willing to receive some of that, maybe backlash, some of that emotion that comes back to you. That's one of the hardest parts, is fear of someone else's anger, or fear of some outcome. Fear of maybe I'm going to go to jail for that. Fear of maybe I have to pay back a bill for that. Whatever that is being willing to accept the consequence, but trusting that because you're living in the right way, it's going to go better for you. With our clients, we see so many times, I got a court date coming up. I got some probation officer I got to report to. Are you living in integrity? Are you in treatment? Are you doing good? Are you paying your bills? Yes, yes, yes. I have yet to see a judge or a probation officer say, back in the can, back in the clink. No, you're living with integrity, and it just works out. Mm-hmm. It does. And that applies in every area of your life with your relationships. If it's meant to be, if it's going to work out, it's going to have to be inside integrity. Or else it's never going to be real, it's never going to be genuine, it's never going to be authentic.
I really like how you said with one of the rules of life, Jordan Peterson, is tell the truth, or at least stop lying. And I've found also like, okay, if you can't start there by like owning stuff, okay, quit saying dumb stuff. Like just quit saying dumb stuff then. You can think in your head, but just quit saying it. And if you can bring some ease to something, another thing that worked effectively for me, it was really hard, but it wasn't like it was hard because it was me like being true, is I would start as I looked for ways to restore integrity in my life. There was things that happened years before in my relationship with my spouse that I would acknowledge. And if I needed to say apologize and like, hey, how can I make that right? And it was small things like, hey, I remember this time I was really rude to you. And if you can start in small things maybe like that, and then I'd be current, be like, hey, you know what? There's this one time we were on a date and I was a real like turd blossom. And I want to like, can I make that right? Can I take you on a date? Can I just acknowledge that? And if you're able to do some of those small things, then you're feeling good. And when you're feeling good, you're able to kind of generate a little more momentum in that direction. If like being in integrity is too daunting for you, start small. Start like in those areas where you can like just let go of a couple secrets, or go talk to a counselor, or like write them on a piece of paper and like divulge them until you can kind of like feel like a little bit more ease in that.
Yeah, I mean, I had a family member that recently told me that she'd never heard a man say sorry, and really,
wow.
Maybe that years of being in a difficult relationship with someone who's arrogant or rude or unapologetic,
or doesn't know how,
or they can't acknowledge anything. Maybe that's a big ask from that person. Mm-hmm. So just starting with, yeah, I'm aware I've hurt you. I've done some things that are not cool or they're not good, and working into that spot where you can say, I am sorry. I really mean it. It's not fake. Like, it's real. Where a lot of our clients will say, like, I've said sorry so many times and nobody believes me anymore. I mean, I really do feel sorry in the moment, but then I keep acting out of integrity and reoccurring damage, that my words don't matter anymore. People need to see action. They need to see where your feet are pointing. Are you pointing towards living a way with integrity? Are you pointing in a way that like actually shows up in a measurable way? Or are you still just all talk?
Best apology, the best act of integrity is change behavior. That's it.
100%. Mm-hmm. And we had an experience. I had a client tell me that when he was in his addiction, he was really thinking he was doing a lot for his family. He thought he was showing up. He thought he was working hard, all this stuff. As soon as he starts getting his head clear, he starts doing better, he feels like he's unproductive. He feels like his brain's in mud. He's moving slow, but people around him start saying, you're actually showing up for us now. You're actually doing good for us
Whoa.
now. And the cognitive dissonance is like shaking him. Well, I thought I was one way, but I thought I was superhuman when I was on meth and Adderall and junking it up. But now I'm realizing I was just taking stuff apart and leaving holes in the ground,
So he was the puppy dog that was digging holes in the backyard trying to bury something because he needs a purpose and was not like fulfilled. Well, so that's the workability part, right? Is there was also no like on their part like, hey, is this working for you? Am I the way I'm showing up? Because I think it's awesome. Is it working for you? And then being honestly open to them saying like, no, you're here, but you're just a spaz. You're not connected. You're doing all this frantic, energetic stuff that is not fostering any connection.
I had another client tell me just this week that he had his 6-year-old daughter see him for the first time without a beer in his hand. And he had a realization, like, wow, 6 years has gone by. Wow, I got to do something different. So just those moments of truth of being willing to do something different and doing a more workable way, that's where the strength of this integrity comes from, and choosing into something different.
And by the way, it's not for other people. Sorry, this is all about selfishness. Like if you are willing to be in integrity, it's not for the other people in your life. It's for you. The big benefit is you are a person who things work out for. And if you're winning with you, guess what? You can win with other people and they can win with you and your life starts working.
One more story I want to share. We had another client that he did construction and had a high-end company, making good money, doing a lot of jobs. But after a while, his addiction really caught up to him, and he had someone pay in advance a large sum of money. He went and spent that all on dope, lost it all, ended up, disconnecting and avoiding that person. In his recovery, it came up, well, if I make that amend, I might do some jail time. I might need to pay back a lot of money. And he went ahead and did it anyway. He trusted the process, that if I live with integrity, things will work out. To his surprise, that client said, I've got a history of understanding this. I've got it in my family. I'm really proud of you for coming back to me. How would you feel about finishing the job or doing some other work? And he was just like, whoa. And then his addict kind of came out a little bit, but then I got to work for it.
It's probably the hardest job he's ever done. Probably the one that just didn't want to be there, angry. And part of that is he's killing the old self and it's trying to thrash and survive.
Still trying to scream, but he fought the instinct. He went and did the work, worked on making amends, worked through it, even though there was that selfish, thrashing, angry addict inside. And then that guy's like, I got a lot more work for you. Here, a lot more jobs, a lot more opportunity. And so much trust was restored, which is one of the massive goals that all of our clients have in early recovery and lifelong recovery is, how do I go get those feathers back from that pillow that flew in the wind? How do I start building that trust? And it's just one feather at a time.
Abundance. Another tactic to use as you're restoring integrity is with somebody you're willing to open up about how you want to be more impeccable with your word or more you want this part of your life to work, is allowing somebody to see you and let them know I don't need you to fix me. I just need to practice being honest with you and owning some stuff with somebody. So if you can create an accountability partner where you just practice with them. Hey, I need to practice saying sorry with you. I need to practice actually not saying sorry and just saying, I acknowledge I hurt you. Maybe you need to practice not saying sorry all the time and just say oh, you know what? Thank you for waiting for me. Thank you for saying, allowing me to mess up and want me back. Try thank you. Try I acknowledge. And
try smiling instead of negging yourself right away and frowning.
Yeah, that's a great way to keep the shame demons in check, right? So create a space for yourself to practice that, and then find some little area you can be accountable with somebody in. Ryan Hymas and I we would follow up with our workouts every day, and the deal is no judgment. We're gonna do this, and we practice and we practice. It's a practice. So find little ways you can practice it, and then you're gonna have this experience where you do something really, really hard, and you don't tell anybody about it. It's just yours. You did this thing that usually you would do and tell everybody hey, I did this thing. Whatever it is for you, you went and did a run, or you passed on buying the soda, or you apologized to somebody you didn't need to, whatever it is, and you don't tell anybody, it's just for you. And then it is just for me. I feel so good because everyone around you is going to feel it. They're going to know it.
And this kind of ties into our last podcast where we talked about service without a trace.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same concept of practicing integrity without a trace, doing it where your intrinsic value is more important than being seen or being noticed. And yes, the accountability gives you an opportunity to kind of just move that direction and practice it. But there's no parade, there's no cheering crowd. It's just doing it for the right reason, and that intrinsically builds something that works and it's foundational and it strengthens your core.
More valuable than any amount of money you think you need, more valuable than any of those people you think you need, more valuable than that body you think you want. That right there is the treasure.
Now, my brother-in-law runs a construction company, and he hires people from our program. And one of the traits he always looks for, he says, is I know if someone is honest if they work hard. If they're hard workers, it's almost always a combination. They're honest. So I trust them quicker and faster. So if you're looking for a way to build your integrity, increase your work, increase your ethic. Don't time waste, don't steal time, don't spend time on your phone. Just do the task at hand and do it really well and with maximum effort. That's just a great path to restoring and building integrity, because then people see where your feet are pointed.
Another tactic on that is sometimes you're going to be doing this great work you think or you want it to be, and you get feedback that it is not what it needs to be. And you can get really offended because you're trying to do this integrity thing and they're not seeing it, and you can get all the punk just comes out and just wants to punk out. In that moment, it's not about you. It's about the job. It's about the thing. Make it not about you, and you'll be able to hear the thing you need to hear and still practice integrity and not feel like you're getting put down or offended or confronted or like whatever it is. If you make it not about you in that moment as you're trying to do this work thing and you're getting the feedback that, hey, do you need to do better than what you're doing? Don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. And you'll like get a ton of traction out of this.
And I find I hear people they kind of vocalize their negative language when they're not acting in this way. They tell themselves a story. They walk around. Yeah, well, I just feel tired. No one ever checks my work anyway. And they'll literally kind of talk out loud and they carry around this low-shouldered, head down. They've got this verbiage that says, I'm being cheated. I'm being taken advantage of. Shaking that off and you're not paid for your opinion. You're not paid for your thoughts. You're paid for what you do and how you show up. And that's what speaks to you. So just kind of lock that in. Lock that in. This is how I show up for work. I don't care if my job is scooping.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Whatever it is.
It doesn't matter what it is.
But I'm the best garbage poop scooper ever because I'm doing it with integrity.
And whatever's in front of you is the work. So you don't have to like look for somewhere else. When you get to that point, like I will do it, it's whatever's in front of you. That's what you need to work. That's the land you need to cultivate. This is the law of the harvest right now, exactly what we're talking about. And in practicing integrity is seeds. Seeds, 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 seeds. And the abundance will come. We can promise, testify, like, that is true.
And by doing that, people in your life will notice. By you making, for one, you make their life
the
easier.
Right people for your next level. Like to level up, those right people are going to be there. Not the ones that like you want to go back and be the same you. No, those people won't notice. But the people that'll be there for you leveling up, they're the ones that'll notice.
When I was back working in selling cell phones, I had a coworker. Back in the day, that was a big job for me. He would say, I don't want to present too good because then my uppers they'll think I'm going to take their job. So I just kind of stay right below the line. And this is where I'm comfortable. And I always thought that was just stupid.
It is.
I was like, why would you sandbag how good you are and how how hard you're willing to work? So I didn't align with that. I worked really, really hard, tried my best, and I made the most money, and I had the most sales, and I got the most rewards while I was there.
Felt the best about yourself.
Felt the best about myself, and I didn't get promoted. So in that corporate system, he was probably right. But he's probably still in that corporate system, scraping by. And I'm not. And I'm perfectly happy where I'm at.
And more importantly, like you look back at that, like no judgment too. Like you see it for what it was and you can separate the person from the thing. And that's a big deal.
So you just have to ask yourself, is this really what I want? Is this what I really, really want? Do I want to live in a way that I'm playing by weird games, con games, these rules, these institutional ways of thinking?
Let's talk about that real quick. Snitching.
So Delancey Group, they're awesome foundation. They discovered that when people come out of prison, they have to learn how to practice integrity. And they'll give them jobs right out of the gate. Here's a job. But if something comes up on the job where you have a chance to still cheat or take, you have to snitch. You have to be honest. They break down the stigma of snitches get stitches. Because in that same vein, people fall back into their old patterns and they end right back in prison. It's just this circle of trash that keeps happening.
It's where the law of keeping other people accountable has become maladaptive to prison mentality, to conning, to gangster, to like organized crime way of like adapting or that idea.
And while they're in that, they can't progress. They can't get better. But there's comfortability. There's safety in what we feel comfortable in and going back to those old patterns. Where Delancey found if they get people to practice snitching and do positive reinforcement, oh, you came to us and you told the truth. Okay, let's find out a solution. We're not going to throw you back in jail. We're not going to punish you. There's no stitches. There's actually rewards. And we're going to recognize you as someone who's practicing honesty. And they hold banquets where they recognize people and pull them up and say, this guy did honest. This guy showed up. This is how he's acting now. And then this guy is giving this honesty and training someone else to do his job, and he's moving up to a different job. So he's phasing up. So the honesty is the reward. The hard work is the reward. And as they do that, they all get to move up and help each other. And they have like a 90% success rate of people not going back to prison.
huge, and they've been doing it for decades.
Decades. Massive. But that applies in our lives here. Like, you know, if you fall into addiction, the first thing to go is your integrity. The first thing to go is your honesty. And you get into this pattern, this maladaptive pattern of take, abuse relationships, damage.
Something for nothing.
Something for nothing. Always looking for the freebie. You know, you gave me back some extra change, I keep it. Instead of holding yourself accountable. Nope, I give back even the 3 pennies you overpaid me. Because those 3 pennies are the value of my integrity in this moment right now.
And the moment's all that matters. It's the hardest one. Like where you said you're not gonna drink soda and you're at that place and no one's there and you don't pick up the soda. Like that's the place like that it matters. That's where it's the hardest.
And when you notice the little things, you're walking down the street and there's some garbage, pick it up.
Pick it up.
It's not yours, so what? Pick
See a weed, pull it out.
You agreed to be a citizen that does good in the world, do it.
The other, can I bring this kind of home? What you're also pointing out is when you're willing to be in integrity, you're willing to be held accountable, and you're way more likely to hold other people accountable, which is winning together. So when you're like, I've got to be true to me, and I've got to be true to my word, and then the way I show up anywhere is how I show up everywhere. Like I'm going there. When people give you feedback, it doesn't trigger you. It's like, oh, that's just what I need to get to where I want to go and for them to win too, and I'm winning. And so when you practice accountability, you also are way more prone to like sell somebody else from a place of love. Hey, that's not okay. Hey, you got to work on that. Hey, this is not what we do here. And since you're doing integrity out of love and not out of some other reason, it resonates with other people in a way that maybe you haven't experienced before.
And this is one of those situations where don't fake it till you make it. Don't. I've seen plenty of people who talk about their good deeds, who act like they've got it figured out, who share those openly.
If somebody comes in here saying, hey, I'm the honest guy, I'll totally be honest with you, we're going to always like have a upfront stuff. I'm like, oh, you're a liar.
Totally. They're not living with integrity.
Exactly.
So be the guy who does it incrementally, who works on it, who at least doesn't
or
lie. Or gal. And move into that I'm impeccable with my word. Practice it. That's the path to a lifelong recovery. It's the path to being a better human being, to having a better relationship with your spouse or with your partner, to having a better work environment, have an opportunity to actually grow either in that company or outside that company from a culture that values that. And if you're in a culture that doesn't value that, live that way and get out. Because you become what you sit around all the time.
All the time.
If you're around people who are dirtbagging it, you're going to eventually be dirtbagging it too.
And the connection and aliveness you feel from being that way is the best. It is the best. And I think that's what we'll end on. Like, then you're feeling aloha, then you're feeling connected and alive, and your recovery is turning into something that's just rocking and really influencing not just you, but your world more powerfully.
Thank you, Shay.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate the sponsorship we get for this podcast for I'm Recovery, and all the listeners. Please go ahead and leave a review, share it with a friend or family, somebody who think could maybe benefit from that. Not in a way like you need to do this, like, hey, this is making my life better. You should check it out. Jared, where can people find I'm Recovery as a resource?
IAMRTC.com, or our phone number is 801-407-9998.
This is Shay, the Seaworthy Aslet, with Jared, the Aloha Casey. Wrapping it up. Have a rockstar day, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.